doing here is we're dissecting a person's theory who's spilling his guts. You don't have to do much in the way of dissecting. Just kind of wade through this thing.
CCM, or Coincidence Control Network, episode 59. As you can tell, I haven't done this for a while. I'm out of practice. I usually get my my Nashville bitch to do it. He's not here today, so I'm retaining my leadership of the good ship Coincidence Control Network, and it's already a shambles. I can't remember what I was going to say, so I'm just going to introduce people. Okay, so joining me this week, the cat fancier, the sex pot, the ladies' choice for CCN, Mr. Kim Monaghan. How are you this week?
Ladies' choice, eh? How am I this week? I'm a little bit scared. I feel like I need a cue from you to tell me when it's okay to speak after you just told us off. But with your permission, yeah, I'm fine.
I had the recorder rolled in for like 2 minutes. There was just waffle going on.
And the recorder's rolling now, and then it'll be waffle for another hour, and then we edit it and we put it out. That's the way it works.
But without this stern voice of Joe Nolan here, it's just falling apart. This isn't good. But anyway, also joining us this week,
and you keep making it worse.
I was going to leave him to the end as a mystery special guest, but he's spoken all over me already. Hello, Raymond Wiley. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. I'm never afraid to talk over you, Ken. Though, you
should be.
And so exactly. So Joe and Daddy Tank, like everybody else, should just disregard Ken. He's no longer in command of the starship CCN. So.
It's a coup. It's a live coup. I've been waiting for this moment for 60 episodes.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's taken Ken like a year for you to invite me back on the show.
Is it?
I've been planning this coup the whole time. You've been doing a lot of back end drug smuggling operations to raise money for my contras, and they're all over Brighton now. So
they'd have to. I don't know. We've got a lot of backup here. Anyway,
you just can't play along, can you? You just can't play along.
All right. Also, in the red corner, Josh Frater Isla. How are you, sir?
Not too bad, man.
We can fucking hear you this
I'm
time.
also whipping up some Contras.
You can actually hear you this week. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a shocker, right? I don't have to wait 5 seconds to see if my joke fell or not.
You just know it won't in advance.
Now the fake laughs will come immediately.
I met Josh's wife this week, briefly.
In real life,
this is starting to get interesting now.
No, I did. I met her.
It was weird, but after 20 minutes, we just got in the groove.
It was.
What were you at the rave or something? You got in the groove.
No, it was after that sexy episode. It just, he just couldn't help himself. No, it was a a virtual meeting. It was funny though. I've seen the insides of your house. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we're going to be doing, maybe not every week, but video episodes of this show soon. So look out for that. You'll be able to see us, and probably all unsubscribe the moment you do. Especially Kim. I mean, the illusion of sexiness is going to just completely go down the pan when people see his
dung heap of a home.
Dung heap of a home and scurvy-ridden body. It's not going to be good.
I have a theory that like CCN is going over to video basically so Ken can show off his toy collection. That's what I think.
That's a pretty good theory, actually.
I mean, he's got some like mint in box stuff, a lot of collectible loot.
Ray, you know for a fact that everyone on the internet has seen his toy collection at least twice in totality. So who's he going to show it to? There's no fresh victims out there.
Yeah, but they haven't seen it in video, Kim. That's the thing.
Unless it was on chat roulette, but it was different kind of toys then. Yeah. So.
Oh
yeah, we'll be able to, because I won't go into it too much now, but Josh and I discovered that there are sound effects and like party hats and stuff that can be used for this video thing.
Total game changer.
It is. It just makes the whole thing way cheesier, but it's really good.
I've
Anyway,
always thought the content we were discussing lacked party hats, and now thank God we can finally give it the polish it deserves.
you can't
Slide whistles. We really needed those.
trust me, Kim. You can look like a pirate cat with a monocle. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
Josh has seen it. It's pretty impressive.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Anyway,
Incredible what technology does these days.
let's get this jalopy of a show on the road. Starting off with Josh. Louisiana schools enforce Christianity.
That's right. This is a weird story. There was a Buddhist family that's suing the Sabine Parish School Board in Louisiana for violating their religious freedom. And basically what was going on is this school is like an indoctrination center, it seems like. There's a electronic marquee out front that scrolls Bible verses. When you go inside, there's pictures of Jesus everywhere and posters with, like Christian slogans and stuff like that. And this is a public school, so to my knowledge, we're not supposed to be doing that. There's also some stuff that's actually in the teaching curriculum. The science teacher there at this particular school that started the problem, she is teaching that the Earth is only 6,000 years old and that people who believe in evolution are stupid and are just coming up with an excuse to, replace the fact that they don't have God in their life. She also had some exams that would have extra credit questions that were stuff like, isn't it amazing what the blank has made? Any of you guys want to fill in that blank?
Okay.
What the Raymond Wiley has made?
That's right.
what the universe has made.
So no, it's Lord, and that's
What the
why you
South
failed
has made?
science.
The
That's why you
Lord.
failed science. So it's obviously that's something you'd expect out of a private school, maybe, but not a Christian school, not a public school for sure. The superintendent of the parish, she spoke to the family and actually asked them if they would mind possibly raising the kid outside of Buddhism, as if that was an option. Another option was maybe they should move somewhere where there were more Asian children. Her whole argument has been that this is a matter of freedom of speech and has nothing to do with state and religion. I don't know. That's just some wacky ass news. Raymond, have you ever been to Louisiana?
Fortunately not, but I can tell you that this is not uncommon throughout the South, right? And this language of freedom of speech, which is, I think, the way they're couching it's complete nonsense, is very much like the concept of freedom of association that was harped upon so much by the segregationists in the 1960s after Brown versus Board of Education, when public schools were desegregated throughout the South. And that was always what they preached. Well, we have the First Amendment right to associate with whoever we please. So if we don't want to accept black people at our lunch counter or black people in our school, then we don't have to. That's the argument. And you can see how now, now they've added the Jesus element into it as well. And it makes it, to me, even more repugnant the way it's being pushed on people. Like, you can have whatever religious beliefs you want, but like, don't push it on this poor family. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is it generally in the States that you don't have like a Christian backbone to the religious
I mean, there
education?
is one, but you definitely don't see it at school very often.
Really?
It's very different
it's frowned on.
from the UK, Ken. Like in the UK, right? The Queen's the head of the church. The church is an official sanctioned body, the official church, as it were. And then so a lot of times, if your kid's at I don't know if you would call it a public school, but a school run by state funds, they'll often wear a uniform with a cross on it or something like that. And there's been some small controversy, but by and large, it's a different concept than you have
Uniform
in
with
the
a
UK.
cross on. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, there's schools, I think, even in the Brighton area around where you live, where some of the school kids have, there's some church element to what's going on, or there may be
That's
like
probably private schools. Actually, that's probably like private Catholic schools or something like that. I don't think it's like.
No, we have plenty of. There's plenty of school. They're not private schools. However, the church runs them so you can apply. So I mean, like
Yes,
locally,
and they're given public funds.
Yeah,
right?
and I've never quite figured out where they sit. They're definitely not private though, because you've got weird situations where like there's a local Jewish school where at least half the kids that go are Muslim, which you would think would obviously not work, but because they're all sort of aged between 5 and 11, it's not a problem.
That's interesting. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we have religious education here. I think was it called RE at your school as well, Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they did you?
Wow.
Did your?
Let me ask you, Ken.
It should have been called. It shouldn't have been called RE. It should have been called CE, because I didn't get educated about any of the other
They used
religions.
to show you videos of like. I always remember the funniest thing about RE at school was the RE teacher was one of those kind of down with the kids kind of teachers. And so he'd go, oh yeah, because we were all into like metal and stuff at school. He goes, yeah, there's Christian metal, and and he put this video on, and we had to watch this video, and it was all about a band called Striper.
Striper, I was just about to say, yeah.
And he was like, yeah, Christ can rock too. I just remember that. It was quite funny. But,
So did you have to pay tuition to go to this school?
No.
Okay, see, now that's the difference between the U.S. and the
Right.
U.K. That's the best way to describe it. Like, if you are paying tuition to go to the school, it's a quote-unquote private school by nature, and you can have some kind of religious teaching in it. But if you're not paying to go, if the school is just taking public funds to run itself, there's not supposed to be any religious prejudice as to which religion is talked about, and you're not supposed to really endorse any one religion at all, and that's why this is a big issue, because of separation of church and state. Yeah.
But, I mean,
Well, it's also an issue because you don't really get to choose the school you go to. I mean, I'm not sure how it is across the whole U.S., but everywhere I've lived, there's school districts, and wherever you live determines where you go. So basically, where these people live is decided for them. They don't really.
that's the same
get
here
to
as well.
choose
Though.
the school.
We get sort of dumped in a school depending on our postcode, basically, don't we?
That's
Right,
right. And they have the option.
Only if you're poor, Ken. Only if you're poor.
Oh, I bet you went to fucking private school. You
Oh
posh
yeah,
bitch.
all the way.
Now, these Buddhist family could transfer their kid to somewhere else in the parish that's a little less Christ heavy, but then they wouldn't be able to like get a bus to school or home. So they would
Right.
have to take care of transportation. It becomes way harder to do the whole thing. Like the only other option is for them to pay to send the kid to a private school, which none of that's right. I don't think any of that's on the level at all.
And I've seen how bad it is to get anywhere in the States recently, and if you don't have a car, you're fucked.
Pretty
Basically.
much. That's right. That's exactly right.
I mean, it really is bad there. I didn't realize like quite how bad it was. I remember when we stayed in Florida, which is quite a heavily touristy area. Even trying to get to the nearest shop there was like a good 5-10 minute drive. It was ridiculous.
Yep, and it's really not made any better by the governor of Louisiana, who's Bobby Jindal, I think is his name.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's constantly supporting stuff like this to kowtow to the evangelical, older white voting base. So,
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Louisiana for a couple of years when I was a kid, and I mean, I'm sure any of our listeners that are from there will agree with me. It's the asshole of the universe, absolutely.
If you were to all the Louisiana listeners,
Yeah,
just
your
turned off.
Louisiana demographics has gone down the pan there. Cheers, Josh. We like to kowtow to all the states.
Ray,
I'll have a list next week.
you've been sort of critical of various parts of the South. So you're both from the South. So if you were going to list them in order of deep South Bible Belt badness, which would be the worst state?
Mississippi.
I was thinking Mississippi too. That's kind of where I was going to.
Yeah, Mississippi, definitely.
Are you thinking of rehoming there then, Kim?
You seen that movie? I mean, have you seen that movie Mississippi Burning with Gene Hackman?
No, I've not seen it.
Go watch that sometime. It's pretty good. It's got Willem Dafoe in it as well. It's a good film. So, and that'll give you an idea of what it was like in Mississippi. Like they would kill back in the '60s. They would kill liberal activists, white college students, for merely coming into the state and trying to register blacks to vote.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, and not necessarily the coolest place to be. You know.
Sounds it. Okay, Kim.
And that's 2 states down.
Tuesdays. Damn, we've lost our hick listeners. Oh no, you're not allowed to say hick anymore, are you?
But without that mindset, we wouldn't have Deliverance or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, it's to every downside, there's an upside.
It's true.
Right.
It's
Or
true.
Ginger Snaps. Do you remember that film?
Ginger Snaps.
Greatest werewolf film of all time.
I quite like the first one. I thought it was all right. Anyway, why has it been a rough week for popes, Kim?
Rough week for popes. Well, I was doing my usual trawl through a single website looking for things to amuse you with. And there were 2 Pope-related stories bursting on the same day. The first one is fairly short, but I sort of liked it because there's a video of it. The Pope released some doves of peace, which he still does for whatever reason. And they were attacked not just once, but twice by a magpie and crows as well. Now, ordinarily, people would just say, well, that was just, clever birds attacking stupid domestic birds. But I like to take it as a sign of greater things to come. The crows and magpies clearly work for Satan, and doves work for the Pope. So I'm anticipating some kind of apocalyptic meltdown in the near future for Catholicism.
Was there any other predictions of that? Did any right-wing, sort of crazy Christians from Mississippi and what was the other place?
I don't think Sarah Palin's picked up on this yet.
Yet. Give it time.
Because she does not like the Pope, as we know.
Somebody tweet her.
I think I don't think it was reported, but I'm pretty sure that the crow and the magpie were both immigrants as well.
Oh, really?
So that probably
Double whammy.
but that on its own wouldn't make a bad week for popes. The other story was also pretty fascinating, which is that thieves went in and stole to order. They stole a reliquary of Pope John Paul II's blood, which is a great story. Because obviously you wouldn't just steal blood for any reason. It's not like stealing his hat or stealing his shoes. They've stolen his blood either to A, reanimate him, or B, to use in a satanic ritual. So again, more dire consequences for popedom and Catholicism in general.
I wonder if they did it just to sort of give Dan Brown material for one of his new books.
Oh, tell me about it. Well, Pope blood is very high level spell component in D&D. So I'm just saying, like millions of gold coins to get a hold of some Pope blood. So much easier to steal it. So and you get XP for stealing it. So what were you saying about Dan Brown?
Well, it's the kind of crap he puts in his brilliant books, isn't it? I don't know. He's just not very good, is he, Dan Brown? Basically, is what I'm saying.
Have you ever read a Dan Brown book?
I've read all of them, but the new one. Sadly.
Why did you do that?
Oh, because when I used to work in my last job, I used to, in my job before I went to university, pretty much, I used to have an Audible account and just download any old shite basically and listen to it throughout the day. And I probably believed the Da Vinci Code was true for a while, for about a week.
It's good to hear that you're the man in charge of quality control at Sing now. What do I like? Oh, yeah, the old shit. I see Dan Brown was preceded by a noxious wave of bad reviews. So I heard about Dan Brown's inability to write long before I even knew what he'd written. So as soon as his books started plopping into charity shops near me, I just ignored them for the rubbish they clearly are.
Yeah.
I do enjoy reading the odd sentence, though. People like to pull random sentences out of his books, and they are incredibly badly written.
Stuart Lee quote again? Was it the bad man looked at the red chair or something?
Yeah.
He just can't write.
I was always kind of turned off because it was so obviously derivative of Henry Lincoln's work, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and all that stuff. So, and I was just like, well, why not? Why not? Just read that again. I mean, if I'm going to put myself through this. So, Now, Ken, you mentioned your old job, and I don't know if it's come up on the show, but I believe you used to work with Dr. Goodrick Clark. Is that same job? He's passed away this past year. I don't know if that ever got announced widely.
Oh, yeah. No, we didn't announce it, did we? No. But no, yeah, we should probably bring it up, actually. That's a good point. We didn't ever actually... But he was a pain in the ass to ever get on the show, as you've probably found out as well. Trying to book him wasn't easy. But
yes, he was one of the foremost occult scholars in the world, but the only guy that would ask you to like pay him to come on in your podcast. So it's very rare that he was ever on like any of our alt media podcasts or whatever.
But he basically cornered the market, as it were, on the occult Nazi sort of scholarly work, didn't he? Really, he was the kind of the big daddy of that.
Yeah, it was his Oxford PhD dissertation, and then it became a book, Occult Roots of Nazism, which was a bestseller. It's been translated into a lot of languages. And then he ran the program at Exeter for many years. Now, you knew him in person. Ken,
yeah,
I
met him
a couple
few
times in person.
I met him through Inform a couple of times. Yeah, he was... that didn't help. I thought that maybe, get me a discount at least, but no.
Is Inform the newsletter for occult Nazis? You might need to explain what it is.
Yes. A strictly Argentinian subscription base.
Now, not all the Nazis went to South America. Some of them went to North America.
As you well know.
And then to the moon. So
yeah, true.
So should we talk about Himmler then, since we're talking about Nazis?
We could do. That's a nice little segue that I was about to do. You git. My whole thing of me doing this week was I was going to do some seamless segues and then mock Joe Nolan next week for his sort of awkward segues. But now I can't do that. Unless actually, hang on, there's some good segues coming up actually. But anyway, yeah, go on. Yes, let's talk about how Himmler is the new Anne Frank, Raymond.
Which is controversial, to say the least.
Yeah, way to just sex that headline up for us there, Ken.
That's my bachelor's degree in journalism paying off finally.
I hope that there's a very angry Frank relative out there somewhere listening to this podcast.
Yeah. I should be writing for the Red Tops.
And now all of your Polish listeners and Israeli listeners gone. So we got Mississippi. We're going over to Eastern Europe now. We're just going to scare everyone off. Okay, Himmler. Ken, that was uncharacteristic to compare him to Anne Frank. That may have been a little mean. But there is a link here in that we now have his journals and letters as a way to peer into the history of the Second World War and the terrible years of the Nazi regime. Heinrich Himmler, as we know, was the head of the SS, in charge of the concentration camps and the Holocaust, and kind of also maybe some occult connections there, as we brought up earlier, at least in the way that symbols and images were used with the SS. So all these personal papers of his and letters that he sent back and forth between him and his wife have come to light in a collection of papers in Israel, and a book and a film are being made about this. And so the stories just hit the press in the past couple of days. The New York Times, very, very less controversial headline than yours, Ken. Himmler papers shed light on personal life of a Nazi. But you're much closer to the day
headline. God.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I figured you'd say that. So I went, to not be U.S. prejudice. I went over across the ocean, Daily Mail online. Just the headline, because I know you love the Daily Mail so much.
My boys. Yeah, go on. What do they say?
Himmler's love letters reveal him to be an insecure romantic fantasist who kept
more like it. That's more like it.
His wife.
Now they're cooking.
Yeah, I much prefer the UK titling. So, but yeah, they do. He never tells his wife about any of the, of course, millions of people that he's murdering or what he's doing, and like it's so crazy. Like, here's just from the first paragraph: when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941, the wife of Heinrich Himmler, chief of the Nazi Gestapo and the SS, and one of the main orchestrators of the Holocaust, sent him a message. "There is a can of caviar in the icebox. Take it." On another occasion, Himmler's wife Marguerite received a note. "I am off to Auschwitz. Kisses, your Heine."
I think
That's
he's
quite
probably
good.
the only person that said he was off to Auschwitz and then put kisses on the end of it.
The
It's really terrible that we're laughing at this, but like you got to laugh or you'll cry.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I love
you
the fact
know?
he didn't tell his wife. Do you reckon that's because he didn't really want to kind of like bring a bad mood to the bedroom kind of thing? He was kind of like a bit of a downer.
Very sexually charged material in these letters and these correspondences, and you kind of get a sense of what this person was like. I've read a couple of different news reports on it. I haven't got into the archive yet because the movie and the book aren't out yet. But there's a lot of like sort of sexuality, a lot of sort of very like uber right kind of like descriptions of themselves as being like without compassion or very hard-hearted. You know, my bad boy, my black woman, my evil man, this kind of stuff. I mean, I swear, it's like...
That's funny. They're all the names I call Kim Monaghan.
Well,
Generally.
Only when I'm in that Nazi uniform for you.
You mean you're not in it right now? What the hell?
Just the hat and that's all.
let's not forget those fine Hugo Boss shoes. So.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting hot under the
So you
collar
think?
here.
So you're saying you think they knew that they were? Wait, because that's an interesting angle because I essentially knew that I thought Nazis thought that they were doing the right thing, not that they were secretly snickering about being the naughty kids in class. You know what I mean?
I got an analogy for you. Okay, there aren't many red squirrels in England, right? Because all the gray squirrels came in and killed them all. This was the story that I was told. Like it's all gray squirrels from North America now. Okay, it was this. That's the way they looked at the whole thing. It was this like social Darwinism, survival of the fittest kind of shit, where they just saw themselves as being better than everyone else, and so it was. They thought it was just better for the human race for them to just push other people aside, and I think a lot of that kind of comes out. So they're like the evil gray squirrels taking over England and killing all the red squirrels.
Oh yeah, no. Obviously, I agree with you. But they always, if you look at Leni Riefenstahl films, they're always portrayed as being, the knights and heroic and things. So I always assumed that their personal psychology would be, it's hard work, but we're doing it for the good of Germany and the Aryan people. Not, oh, look at us, aren't we naughty? But secretly everyone thinks we're doing the right thing.
Well, you could also compare it to maybe a street gang where, there's this one gang, they're working hard, they're trying to fulfill their criminal vision of the future and make all this money and have all this power, but there's these other groups that are competing with them, and for them to survive, they've got to destroy the other groups, and so it can become extremely violent and nasty, even though these are people that in daily life aren't really doing much more than selling a little drugs back and forth from each other. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's that team mentality, right? But that team mentality is also what makes the Riefenstahl films so powerful, because it's like just it seems like the whole society is just pouring its attention into this one set of goals that just happen to be all about running everybody else off. So I don't know. I hope I'm not going on too long about this, but it's thought it was a fascinating story and really pretty fresh. So, but yeah, if you want to get into the sex stuff, of course, it's in the Daily Mail article. So.
Obviously, yeah. They always report on the most important parts of stories. Right. It's right. True. But tell me one thing. I bet you during their reign as terror masters of the Second World War. They would have loved to have hunted cows with rocket launchers. Seamless segue there. But anyway,
bring back Joe Nolan.
I hope Joe Nolan is listening to that. Anyway, yeah. So I found this article and on this website called The Thrillist or just Thrillist. And I just couldn't believe it. I thought, shit, should I give this article to Kim Monaghan or should I take all the glory for it? But it's essentially. It's a whole resort where you can essentially shoot large animals with rocket launchers, which is horrible. I don't know why I'm laughing at it so much. It would only be in Cambodia that you could do this. But you can start off with chickens, or turkeys, and work your way up to a full-blown cow.
Well, surely you should modify the kind of weapon choice. You don't want to shoot a chicken with a rocket launcher. There'd be no satisfactory explosion, would there?
I don't know. If you get enough of them corralled up, it might be.
Yeah, shooting a rocket launcher to a barrel full of chickens, that'd be brilliant. But shooting a single chicken with a rocket launcher, that just seems like a waste of time. Is there video?
Yes, there is. There's 3
and where,
shit.
Is this like a training camp in Waziristan or something?
No, this is. And in fact, actually, one of the videos, I think actually there's what looks like a sort of failed, middle-aged, probably rich, kind of Australian version of Indiana Jones trying to fire a rocket launcher at a cow. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It doesn't actually show you the cow exploding, much to my chagrin. But so if you've got a lot of money and you're in Cambodia, head over to this place where you can also throw grenades into ponds.
Unless you're a cow.
It's like the ultimate macho
Right.
kind of. It's like if you have the tiniest penis in the world, this place will make it feel big. You can go here. You can throw grenades into ponds. You can blow cows up with rocket launchers. You can take it out on chickens. It's great. You can jump off waterfalls. All sorts of things. It's just like a theme park for small-dicked men that look like Indiana Jones, sort of. But yeah, I think
it's not a huge distance away from Hostel, is it?
No.
I mean, how much longer before they're like, yeah, I liked shooting that cow, but is there any chance I could maybe use a machete on a poor kid, or I don't know, chuck some disabled old dude into a bear trap?
Sounds good to me.
I think the Cambodian government already macheted everybody, so too late.
I don't know. Anyway, so it sounds like the sort of thing you'd talk about when you were high, a bit like pot awards at the county fair, eh, Josh?
Hey, nice one.
Seamless. Your segues fucking suck.
So the famous Denver County Fair is going to be hosting pot awards this year. They're actually going to have little booths with 9 different categories. Let me see. I didn't write these down. They're going to be judging live plants and clones, contest for marijuana-infused brownies and savory foods, homemade bongs, homemade roach clips and clothing, fabric made with hemp. I think there's a few others. I don't know if I got all those. But basically, they're not allowing any smoking to go on the fair sites. They're gonna do it all off-site. They're just gonna have photos, and the winner gets a $20 prize and, of course, a blue ribbon. So I think that's going to be in August. It looks like August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Denver, Colorado. So anybody wanting to go check it out probably should. And the real, that's pretty much it for the story. The real reason I brought it up was because when I was going through Reddit and found it, literally every other link on the Reddit news front page was about pot. It was a crazy week for it. There was a lot of politicians coming out in favor of it, which is hilarious. I even saw the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, say something, and it's a pretty big deal. Texas is kind of the from what I understand, the craziest one, the craziest of the states when it comes to pot laws. They're basically, you can get away with murder as long as you don't have a joint in your pocket. So it's kind of interesting. He's just calling for decriminalization, but I love
the quote in this. We thought it was a time for us to take that leap and represent one of the things Denver has going on.
Right. Right.
That's maybe the coolest thing I've ever heard. So, and that's not the only thing going on right in Denver this year. They're going to have the Cannabis Cup in Denver later this year, and that's typically been an event that would either be held in Amsterdam, or they would, if they did hold them in the U.S., you'd have to have a medical card to get in. So they're gonna have one in Seattle as well, where people can go, just general public. All you got to do is be over 21, and you can get in. And if you want to pay a bunch of money, you can get a judge's pass and judge things.
Don't the Subgenius do that every year? They go to Amsterdam and have something called the Frop Cup, which I think runs alongside that Cannabis Cup thing. I don't actually know what it is.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving every year,
Right.
and I think it's just the Subgenii, seeking somewhere where Jehovah One is not quite so powerful, basically.
But I mean, what is the Cannabis Cup? What actually happens? I assume it's just lots of people getting stoned.
Oh,
No, it is a way of ranking and judging what the best pot. It's like the county fair for the world with pot. So, every year, like in Amsterdam, all the different coffee shops have an entry that they put in, or a lot of them do. And so different coffee shops, can get more business or less by winning the cup and it being recognized that they have the best herb to smoke. So
you sound like you know a lot about this, Raymond.
I've spent some time in Amsterdam, and I typically and a lot of the people that I know there have worked in that industry in the past.
Wow, that was quick. Good cover.
Or
I'm just a pothead.
whatever the equivalent is of working in the marijuana industry. It's kind
Well,
of
I mean, in Amsterdam, it's just a normal retail job. You're standing behind a counter. You're a registered legal worker paying taxes. So, and that's the way it's going to be that's the way it is in Colorado now. And I think for a lot of people, that's a huge step forward.
I don't understand your country. It has these little pockets of. The story at the start was, Louisiana school enforces Christianity on Buddhists, and yet you've got other parts of the country where you're having cannabis fairs. Can you have some sort of standard quality across the country, please, rather than having such massive variations?
Right to work on that.
What the fuck's going on?
We take steps towards that as the centuries go by. I mean, to get closer to what you were describing, we had to fight the Civil War last time. So, and 600,000 people were killed all over, whether the local area has more power or the federal government has more power. And of course, the federal government won out over the local right to have slaves then, which is great. Let's just hope that the federal government doesn't win out over the local right to have pot, now. So it's like a real weird balance that you're striking between the state government.
What was the famous case of that recently? It was during the Clinton era, wasn't it? They passed some kind of law in California, and the federal government tried to override it. I can't remember which one it was.
HB 215.
Right.
Which is, made famous in many a Cypress Hill song. So you can actually pick up all the rules of HB 215 just by listening to Cypress Hill albums. You know exactly what to do. But, and that was, I think, because we were just coming out of the crack era. So, the volume was turned up so high in the war on drugs at the time that, even somebody like Bill Clinton, who, basically admitted to smoking pot. I mean, he said he didn't inhale, but whatever. Even for people who were more liberal back then, you couldn't admit to being in support of it. And, as time goes on and more of this happens in different areas, it becomes easier for everyone to admit that it's okay. It's probably okay. It's probably not going to hurt society, for people to be able to smoke pot without going to jail for it.
There's people. I mean, in the last job I've just been kicked out of. The
fail a drug test?
Not this time. Anyway, no. The what do you call it? The people I used to work with genuinely used to believe that marijuana would lead to crack addiction. I thought that kind of mentality had vanished, but clearly not.
No,
it's only vanished among people that smoke marijuana. That's the whole point, is the people who don't smoke it are still terrified of it and think that it's okay to drink half a bottle of whiskey a night.
Well, here's something else, and I've thought about this a lot over the years too, is that, when you're a teenager, the first time you have a couple of stout drinks and you get really drunk, way more drunk than you're going to be the next time you have that many drinks, or ever again when you have that many drinks, really. And I think for a lot of these folks, some of them may have even tried it and just been a little overwhelmed the first time and not realized that, had a freak out or whatever, and not realized, no, actually this is really mellow, just like drinking. It's really mellow after you do it a couple of times and your body knows what the fuck is going on and what you're putting into it, as opposed to being, oh, surprise, here's alcohol for the first time, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, whatever. Well, I guess
Ray's
over in
saying
your
is
country,
try
that's more
again.
like 11-year-old, but whatever. And there go the British listeners. So
we have individual counties as well. It's not just Britain in one big lump. God, bloody
right, and councils, right? So that's is that a county, or is that every town has a council?
We can divide the smallest part of our country into even smaller parts, and that's the joy of having a class system.
It's beautiful.
Well, class systems aside, the ones we can't bear, we tend to send to Singapore, don't we, Ken?
I don't know what you're talking about, because that wasn't a segue. I know you thought it was, but it wasn't. Although I can't actually think of a better one.
Smooth.
Well, yeah, that's me. I'm like a podcast speed bump. Anytime anything's going well, I make sure it goes fucking wrong. Well, first of all, I'd like to complain about the choice of link, because I had a link about how they found, and initially it was just one link to some crazy person's blog, but I've seen this in a few places now, including the brilliant Daily Mail and the Metro, about a alien craft on the moon. There's a craft apparently that was tracked by NASA and disappeared for a while and has now reappeared on the moon, and you can see it on Google Moon, which is something I never even knew existed. And instead of that, you've chosen to talk about some fucking prick with a Porsche in Singapore.
Cover up.
How were the two connected? That's what I want to know. But as you've chosen that link, I guess I have to talk about it. I didn't get any further with the article than where was it? What it says something about. Oh yeah. Okay. So the headline is Porsche-owning UK expat infuriates Singapore with poor people gaffes. Right, and the story starts a British wealth manager, which is where I turned off, because a wealth manager in my world is just another name for a massive prick. What the fuck is a wealth manager?
He's that wanker up at HSBC that's always fucking with you and asking you for more crap. Right. Like, oh, I need 5 more forms of ID. Sorry.
That's a bank manager?
Yeah, they're just as bad.
When did wealth managers happen? Oh, sorry, I just it really made I don't even know what that is, and it made me really angry because I don't need one.
I don't think he owns the wealth. I assume he manages somebody else's wealth.
You don't know that. Well, no one can know that. No one knows what he does. But anyway, so this prick with a Porsche who manages the wealth has gone around saying, oh, my Porsche is back. Normal service can resume once I've washed the stench of public transport off of me. Now, what he's got wrong there is I go on buses and trains and I'm allowed to talk about the fact that other people on public transport are mad and drunk and they suck, right? But he isn't allowed because he's got a Porsche. And I guess you three understand that as well, right? If you use public transport, i.e. you're poor, you're allowed to talk about other poor people. It's like gangster rappers using the N-word. It's fine, but don't wander around.
Public transport jokes are R-word.
Yeah, precisely.
Gotcha.
It's a middle class thing that he wouldn't understand. So fuck you, wealth manager. The good news is anyway that the whole of Singapore is very angry with him, and he's had death threats and all sorts of things. So hopefully they'll hang him from a lamppost.
But they cane you there. They can, right? They can cane you. They can sentence you to corporal punishment if you break the law. There.
Yeah, that was where they had that big deal in the 90s, that story that happened. Where there was
that's right. They do it across the soles of your feet, don't they?
So across his back?
Yeah, it was his back, yeah. I think the kid was an American or something.
Yeah, that's probably why you didn't hear about it. But, and I can't remember what his name was off the top of my head. But, yeah, they have some pretty strict laws over there. So it would be cool if they had a law don't insult poor people. And that's against the law. So.
Oh, I can tell you one thing. Being if he was an American, he would never need to use the ACA, would he, Raymond?
Oh my God, that was a segue. What the hell? I didn't even see it coming. So yeah, okay.
They're the best ones, Raymond. They're stealth
podcast
segues.
segues.
Stealth
An
segues.
ombudsman. That's what we need on CCN. Like, we need someone who can like take all the angry letters that each one of these episodes generates, pare it down into really what we've got to change the most. So no, I'm kidding. So okay, ACA, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, right? I've been covering this in some of my podcasts and some podcast appearances that I've done over the past couple of months. So I figured I'd kind of carry that on today a little bit here on CCN. So the first story I have here is about Affordable Care Act coverage. Enrollment hits 3 million mark, and that's from January 24th. Now, you guys know that like we started off our little experiment with trying to not make fun of poor people and with the healthcare law here, and it got off to a really slow start in October. Right, the healthcare.gov website was all messed up for everybody. No one could get signed up. Right, I mean, the government predicted that there would be 7 million people signing up for this thing within the first couple of first 6 or 8 months. And after the first 2 months had passed, only 200,000 people had signed up because the site didn't work really well. But as time has passed since then, they've gotten the site working a little better, and it's getting a little closer to the enrollment deadlines. The numbers of people enrolling are going way up. So 3 million as of round about the end of January have signed up. And these are people that have signed up for private health insurance through a health insurance company that may or may not be subsidized by a federal tax credit. So most of these people have not had insurance before for a long time, and for a lot of them that are lower incomes are getting a huge discount back through a tax credit, through a refundable tax credit. So now, that's some of the good stuff, right? Now, some of the bad stuff is that early reports that a lot of people wouldn't have to change their health care plan, right, were maybe a little bit exaggerated, right? And a lot of people have attacked the president over the past couple of months because a lot of people's healthcare plans with their employers have changed, the terms of their plans have changed, the price has gone up for some people. So, and this may be affecting as many as 1 million people in the country. I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of numbers, right? Of how many people are being affected adversely or positively by these reforms. Because I'm really trying to work out, what is good and bad about this, because there's just been so much misinformation. Now, the other aspect of the healthcare reform law is Medicaid, which is more like the NHS, right? It's a government healthcare program that's typically been available for poor people.
And drug addicts, right? I think drug addicts use it a lot, don't they?
Drug addicts use it a lot?
Well, there's 3 or 4 films about drug addicts trying to get Medicare that I've seen, so I assume it comes from
mean, if you're a drug addict, probably be a good thing for you to be able to go and see a doctor, right? I don't know how else you're going to not be a drug addict, other than getting thrown in prison, right?
No, I think it's usually when they... I don't know. I mean, I'm only going on fiction here.
Okay.
But the films I've seen, it's just they always... Something goes wrong, like they get shot or, overdose or something, and then they always try and claim Medicare, and they always complain about it takes forever to actually get seen and all this kind of stuff. Apparently it's awful.
Oh, right. Well, that depends. I mean, I think that depends on the area, right? I mean, if your area has an incredibly high population density and no money going into it for healthcare in the local area, and there's only one clinic and there's however many thousands of people, you're going to have that problem whether they have insurance or not. And I think that's where a lot of these reports come from. I mean, the people that make these reports are the same people that say that if you're on the NHS in the UK, that you're going to be automatically waiting in line forever to see a doctor or to get emergency room service. And that wasn't my experience of the NHS. So, and I think for most people that have Medicaid, they have no other choice. They would have no health care. You know what I mean? If they broke their arm, they'd just have to wheel themselves up into the emergency room, and the government would have to take it on the chin anyway and pay for pay to have them treated because they couldn't pay. And all it would do to them would be hurt whatever credit score they don't have anyway, you know? Mm-hmm. So Medicaid has been expanded, though. So it's not just going to be, the idea is that it's not just for the poorest of the poor anymore. That if you're up to 138% of the poverty level, 133% of the poverty level, you qualify for Medicaid now. Now, the caveat here is that, and this goes back to this conversation we were having earlier about the different states, right? Some state, like the courts ruled that states could opt out of the Medicare expansion, or the Medicaid expansion. So half of the states have said, oh, we're super conservative. We're not going to expand Medicaid. We're not going to take on anybody else into this government health insurance system. And half the states have accepted the expansion, which I don't understand why states don't, even if they're conservative, because they don't have to pay for it. Like the federal government is picking up like 100% of the bill in the first years, and then 90% of the bill as time goes on. So these state governments could easily cover hundreds of thousands of poor people at no cost to their state government and get a huge boost to a potential voter base that they're not reaching out to. But they don't see it that way. So how many people have been added? 3 million have gotten the private insurance option. How many people have added themselves to the Medicaid rolls? We don't know yet. The Medicaid office and Human Services Office for the U.S. Estimates maybe 9 million extra people will sign up within 2014 for Medicaid. So all told, what we're looking at is maybe 7-8% of the U.S. population that will have health insurance by the end of this year that did not have health insurance a year ago. And I think that that's pretty important. Now, this has come at an opportunity cost for a lot of people because, like I said, for about 1 million people, at least from what we're seeing now, their health insurance premium has gone up with their employer. So I'm trying to sort of report both sides of this story. My state is one of the ones that has not expanded Medicaid. So if you're poor and if you make less than the poverty level, you don't qualify for a tax break on a private insurance plan, and you're just out in the cold. And that's 600,000 people in my local area. So, okay, I think I've confused everybody enough now. So
it's really messed up. I mean, everyone in this country complains about the NHS, and with some good reason sometimes. But I really am pleased we have it. When I hear stories like that, it's unbelievable.
There's some good comments at the bottom of the link as well. About halfway down, someone says, just today it's announced that the Obama regime is illegally going to change the ACA again. Sadie, you're wasting your time talking to those lefters. We have less than 3 years to get ready for the end of the United States, and those fools won't change.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind that comment was made on the 25th, so it's less than 3 years now. So I hope you two are collecting tinned goods.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm using my welfare checks to collect. Oh man, yeah. I mean, look, this is typical rightist nonsense. And honestly, these sorts of views are not as prevalent as we might believe, given a lot of the press the right gets in the United States. A number of Republican governors of different states have decided to expand Medicaid, some of them without the approval of their local Republican legislatures who have majorities. So there's a lot of debate even within the Republican Party on this. But for the Tea Party types, the Rand Paul types, creeping socialism is taking over the land in the form of my new health insurance card. By the way, I got health insurance, super cheap, and dental, and it's the first time in like 10 years, except for when I was on the NHS, when I was in grad school. So,
There we go. It's messed up. I don't know. I find it quite depressing. I remember when you guys came to visit the first time. I was having a conversation with Austin with Katie, and they were getting quite upset talking about it. And it didn't really sort of occur to me really until I sort of started to read a lot more about the Obamacare thing, and also looking at the reactions of some people to it. It was unbelievable. You think the idea of free or better healthcare would be a good thing, but obviously there seems to be like a massive proportion of the country that genuinely doesn't think that it's a good thing. I always remember after Michael Moore put that Sicko documentary out, all the kind of rhetoric that came after that from like people like Fox News and stuff. It was just like I just couldn't get my head around it. It just didn't make sense.
But if poor people are passing along their genes in a capitalist society, then that is only going to bring down the whole, Ken. That's that's the thinking behind it. Don't you understand?
Good thinking. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
How are we supposed to evolve?
True.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the argument, right? Because this is obviously people that hate this the most, of course, are the rich, right? Because they have the most to lose, as far as they see it. But they transfer this fear down to the white working class by setting up this idea that somehow the healthcare law is costing them tax money, right, to do this. What they don't understand is like there's no like increase in taxes that goes along with ACA. Like, yeah, you have to get health insurance now, but if you're poor, you're going to have access to it for really cheap. And the way it works is that it saves money in the long run for the government because they're not laying out all this cash every time someone that doesn't have health insurance walks into the hospital to be treated. And see, that's the thing, is like this sort of hyper-libertarian philosophy about, well, if they don't have any money, if they didn't go out and earn and add to society, we'll leave them in the cold on health care. Like, that's completely at odds with the Hippocratic oath that doctors have to take. Like, a doctor's going to treat you whether you have money or not. You know what I mean? So why should they be the ones that have to pay all the cost, right, for the fact that there's no way for these people to access healthcare? I mean, doctors, by and large, either approve of ACA or they think that ACA is not going far enough and there should be something more like we have in Canada. And these are rich people that think this, but they're constantly, involved with the system and they can see how it works and how it fails people. I mean, they're going to and this, honestly, all of this helps doctors and it helps hospitals because if more people have access to healthcare, more people are going to take advantage of their services, and it's going to get paid for one way or the other anyway. So, but that's just me shilling for the left. So don't mind me.
See, it seems to me that your country might be losing its edge in terms of right-wing authoritarian capitalism.
You watch what you say.
I know, right? Like, knock on wood, Jesus. Well, I mean,
anything to do with it.
I would say, yeah. I mean, our electorate is shifting. It's becoming certainly much more diverse, much less white than it has been in the past. I don't think that's a bad thing. But if you're a Republican and all of your policies like focus on one cohort of richer white people that you think are going to sustain you as an electorate and as a voting bloc, you got another thing coming, and it's not going to be long. Like, I mean, Obama won by pretty big margins in the last two elections, and Hillary's liable to do the same coming up. And that's what they're talking about 3 years before the end of America, So, the end of America.
What a shame.
There you got to say it properly, America.
The end of America.
Well, anyway, on that bright note, that's another CCM for this week. I'm your host, Ken Eakins. You can find me at sittingnow.co.uk, on Twitter at sittingnow and at screendwellers. You can also find me reviewing films at screendwellers.com. We're about to do a massive facelift on Sitting Now. We're changing sort of everything behind the scenes, so it's going to be a messy couple of weeks, but it should make life a lot easier. So look out for that and prepare to see lots of mistakes everywhere, but it'll be fun. Also joining me this week has been Mr. K. Monaghan. Where can people find you, sir? You
were going to ask how I was then, weren't you? Which would have sent us in a weird loop back to the beginning of the show.
It would have done. You can tell I'm out of practice of this, although my segues were seamless.
Well, no one else thought so, but so long as you're happy with them, that's fine. You can find me. I spend a lot of time at porntube.com or on PlayStation Network.
What are you, Big Spanker 66?
uploading hundreds of films a day.
of
Thank you
himself.
so much, Kim. I hate paying for that shit.
And all of them are just waist down. It's just terribly boring.
Yeah. Well, he is the lifetime owner of fapnet.com. So, you know.
You'll get it right. Fapnet.uk.
Fapnet.uk.
All right.
Yeah, he couldn't afford the .com. Okay.
You want me to say something there, don't you?
I was expecting you to pimp your badass music endeavor.
No, I can't afford fapnet.com, so maybe we can have a Kickstarter for that.
I say net, it's not really a network, it's just you fapping. Yeah.
And that's why CCN is going over to video. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it'll be a bit like chat roulette, but quite boring because it's just four images, four people.
Initially, the plan for this podcast was simply to publicise some of my more useful endeavours, but now I'm just being outed as some kind of continual masturbator, which isn't necessarily going to do my career chances any good.
Well, surely that's what behind closed doors is. It's just us masturbating over our music tastes.
I thought that. That's what I always picture.
Yeah. We're just listen to this 20-minute drone song. But anyway,
that guy's beard, it's huge.
there's only one instrument just droning for 20 minutes. But yeah,
I'm glad you guys can smell your own. That's good.
we know it's a beard stroker of a show, but yeah. Anyway, talking about beards and stroking, Frater Isla, aka Josh, as you're now known.
Burninate.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at frater_isla and fraterisla.blogspot.com.
Cool. And Mr. Raymond Wiley, what have you been up to, and where can people find what you've been up to?
Fapping, but not as much, probably, as Kim.
No,
so,
I mean, that's very difficult. Kim, he is professional when it comes to this sort of thing.
Blisters on blisters.
Well, it's a tad bit tired.
Well, he doesn't get blisters anymore. He's so used to it. It's a bit like a...
Oh, they're callous, like it's like a guitar
Yeah.
player's
Like
hands.
like a rock climber. Their hands become really kind of,
I have gathered them to me, and now my flock will spread the word.
So when I'm not doing that, you can find me at outthereradio.net. We're currently heading towards wrapping up the 3rd season of the show, and you can, listen to me and Austin Gandy, talk about weird shit, basically.
Cool.
Great show.
Cool.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, yeah, we'll be back next week. See, we've actually managed to sort of stay weekly. Surely it's going to go wrong soon. But anyway, we'll see you next week, hopefully, and back with Joe Nolan as the captain of the ship. So see you at episode 60. No, 59. No, 60. What is this?
60.
What episode is this? No, it will be episode 60.
Where am I? Can someone help me?
Seamless.
Hello? No. See you next week.